So I heard you guys like Youthberk. Hello, card fighters. We need to talk about the Tempest in the room. I've been seeing a lot of reactions across social media suggesting that Youthberk Tempest is way too expensive, but it's all Bushiroad's fault. How could they do this? We need more reprints, so on and so forth. I will concede that Bushiroad has skewed the cases recently when they jumped it up to 15 triple rares or 16 triple rares, up from 10 when Overdress first started. But they even got rid of the guaranteed SPs, which were amazing, but that's a different discussion. Today, I'm here to suggest that Bushiroad is not entirely responsible for the price of Tempest as much as the secondary market is. If the price for Tempest was solely a Bushiroad issue, we would see it reflected throughout the rest of the box. Set 7 brings us Tempest, but also Dre Jeweled and Rock Arger. Case ratios are a legitimate concern, but not in the case of Tempest. At the time of this recording, there are 36 copies of Tempest for sale on TCG Player, and the cheapest one is $50. But there are 41 copies of Dre Jeweled at $16 a piece. That's the cheapest viable option to purchase on the website. There are 5 less copies of Tempest for sale, but the disparity between the prices is $30. That feels like a lot for a card pool that is relatively similar, but a huge price disparity. Tempest isn't even a boss grade 3 like Drejeweled is. It needs Skyfall arms to function. Tempest can't perform Revolform. It is Revolform. A more accurate comparison for Tempest might be Rock Arger. But Rock Arger, who is effectively the Tempest of Dre Jeweled, he's the lead triple rare for that playstyle. I like to call him the Lieutenant. Every deck has a triple rare, and that parallels with the playstyle, and I like to call them the Lieutenant because the captain, the commander, the lead vanguard always has that one triple rare that just puts in the work. And there are 19 copies of Rock Arger on TCG Player for sale, ranging from about $15 to almost $20. 20 is the peak. Tempest's peak is 70. So Tempest is 50 to 70 with twice as many copies to Rock Arger, 19 versus like 36. So when you look at Rock Arger versus Tempest, if Bushiroad and case ratios were the primary influence, Rock Arger should be the $50 card because there's less than 20, period. There's only 19 copies of the card being sold right now. So if it was down to, if the supply influenced the market for cards as much as demand did, Rock Arger would be the $50 card, but it's not. Rock Arger and Dre Jeweled are in the same case, which is to say that, yeah, as far as case ratios are concerned, they would be competing for each other's slots. And even still, there's not nearly as much hype for Dre Jeweled as there is for Youthberk or by virtue Tempest, but Bushiroad is not responsible for the price of Tempest because Rock Arger proves that the price is not merely set by supply or the lack thereof. It's largely influenced by demand, a demand that is severely motivated by hype and deck popularity. If everyone is playing Youthberk, then the demand is way higher than usual, so prices can get set to levels where the only ones who really want it will be the ones that get it. Those who are willing to find a way will do what they can, and people who don't want to spend that money, maybe they do. Maybe they grit their teeth and they buy it and they go online and complain about Bushiroad not doing enough. But other people might just decide that they don't want to buy it until the price goes down. The secondary market is influenced by supply and demand, but that demand is motivated by hype. We are a card game community. We set the pace for everything we do with this game. Sellers don't sell unless we're there to buy. I know of plenty of local card shops that don't even supply like Vanguard booster packs because with the 2 reboots and everything, it's very hard for, especially American markets. That's what I'm familiar with. It's really hard for them to go in and commit to something like Vanguard without knowing that product will go somewhere. So and we see this in the promos all the time. The tournament purchase, buy 8 packs, get a promo. Those cards get really expensive because there's not that many stores that are out there getting those promos, getting the products shipped in, so it really dries it up. So for the people that do get supply, they get to set the prices wherever they go. And the promos in Tempest are very similar in that regard. Because there may not be as much circulation, there may not be as much, you know, all kinds of variables go into play. And that's why the secondary market isn't really a Bushiroad problem, because we create the good times in our games. We can also set ourselves up for disappointment by overhyping certain cards here and there, jacking prices up, or setting expectations of big profits, which encourage certain sellers who are in it for profits and flips to go out and get these cards and secure these things and try to make profit off of it, just because it's seen as like a big flip, or there's potential out there. And I'm sure a lot of other card games are like that too. But like when players think that Youthberk is really good, sellers set the price higher than most cards in its position, and there's a lot of hype behind Youthberk. I think Youthberk personally is more hyped than it should be, but since it won Worlds, that hype's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. I know case ratios aren't the only Bushiroad driven issue. There's also discussions of reprints. But what would a reasonably priced Tempest do to the call for reprints? Would we even have this pressure for reprints? And when it comes to reprints, the bottom line is that these things take time. Magic the Gathering, as just as an example, Magic the Gathering sets its price, sets out. They plan their sets years in advance. I'm not trying to compare Bushiroad to Wizards. They've got their own problems. But my point is that Set 7 in English came out in December. That's about 2 months ago as of the recording of this video. There's not a lot of time for English to, smash the emergency reprint button. Cases usually get a couple of print runs before their cycle ends. But again, these things take time. Japanese Bushiroad, their set 7 was in September, but Bushiroad, if Bushiroad plans anywhere near as far ahead as Wizards does, 5 months is still too soon. We're only just now seeing reprints for really expensive cards like Inlet Pulse and Brainwash Swirler and Trick Moon from set 4 last February. Like a year ago. Those cards are just now starting to resurface in set 9, which we won't get in English until the end of March. So there's like a whole year or more between them realizing that reprints are something we're looking for, and them finally being able to squeeze them in and give us what we want. That's not to say they're not trying. They really are, and I think we need to give them that credit and not expect a Tempest reprint just because he's hitting $50, because him hitting $50 isn't because the card's out of print. It's because of the hype overselling the card. By the time they add a Tempest reprint to the schedule, or even book a dedicated reprint set for like December or something, it could take months or even years for it to come out. And by that point, the hype may fade from Tempest, and the meta will have changed, and the desire to even play with Tempest may not even be there. When it comes to the secondary market, there are business aspects and player aspects. Those aspects don't always coincide, but when they do, everything can get out of hand really fast. I see so many social media posts and comments everywhere. People tend to either undersell something or overhype something, and then the reactions just blow up, catch fire. Everything gets super viral. Fandom on the internet, it's a thing. And like, we are responsible. We have to be able as a community to claim responsibility for some of this stuff, because unlike the anime, we're not bound by one deck that everyone's allowed to play. If one deck is too expensive, then that's not a company problem. They've printed so many ride lines that they have different ways of doing basically the same thing. There's plenty of ways to play the game without needing the deck that everyone thinks is the best thing on the market until the reprint comes, the price drops, or interest wanes. feeling priced out of one deck doesn't have to ruin the whole game, but waiting to buy it can feel more rewarding when the deck finally comes together. It could be a good test of how bad you wanted it in the first place. If you want it sooner than later, you could always shop around or use like PayPal's Pay in 4. I use that a lot to get a lot of expensive stuff chunked out over time. Um, knowing your limits financially isn't really Bushiroad's problem either. And it doesn't make Vanguard a bad game when cards cost more than we're willing to spend. Like the outrage against Bushiroad might not be so much like give me a reprint, because that seems like just an easy way out, but it could just be that like the cards are more expensive than you're willing to pay. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing, because you can, like, maybe this is what it takes, a $50 Tempest, maybe what it takes to separate, like, the game is full of whales, and the people who chase competitive, and for those people, maybe a $50 Tempest isn't that big of a deal, because they'll build their deck, they'll play it at Worlds, they'll sell it off, um, and go on with their day when the next big thing comes out, like ChronoJet in a couple weeks. But for a lot of people, um, feeling like they have to buy a card at $50 just to have it now versus waiting a few months, waiting a few weeks, desiring the aesthetic can go a long way. That's how I play the game. I personally tend to build to an aesthetic or go after what makes me happy in the game. And I mean, to some people, no judgment, to some people, winning is more important than most other things, but winning also carries a price tag, because if everybody wants to play it, and if it's really good and it's really popular, that's where meta is. That's what meta is. The hybrid between popular and good. And sometimes it's popular because it's good. Sometimes it's good because it's popular. And with something like Youthberk, where a lot of people will show up with it, like 3 or 4 out of every 10 people will, or even 5, like half. There's going to be a lot of Youthberks that show up in certain metas, whether it's locals or regionals or wherever. And the like, is Youthberk good, or is Youthberk just present? And these things are what leads to these prices getting overly hyped, because at the end of the day, I believe Tempest is overpriced. $50 is ridiculous, because I don't think it's as good as it is popular. That popularity is not exclusively encouraged by Bushiroad. It gets just as much promotion as Crossover Dress or Bruce or any of the other anime character decks or Bastion. And that we have to hold ourselves responsible or accountable to some extent. The reason one copy of Tempest stays $50 is because people keep spending $50 on one copy of Tempest. We as a community have to be able to acknowledge that the market reacting to us as much as we feel the need to react to Bushiroad. Like, if we didn't buy the Tempests, they would drop. But we keep buying Tempest, so it's going to stay that way. And yeah, we can't like control everyone. It's just like trying to go to a tournament and expect everyone to not run over triggers. It's that would be a fool's errand. But yelling at Bushiroad and worrying about reprints, or wanting all of these things that we either can't have right away or won't have at all, just doesn't seem very fair. And I feel like we need to address all of these things openly and honestly, and be able to admit when the market itself is running rampant. It's not entirely up to Bushiroad to solve all of our problems, because the market is motivated by the hype. And if the hype were to die down, and these conversations end up building even more hype, because we keep talking about it, and it makes the cards feel more desirable. And we just have to kind of take a step back and realize that Bushiroad can't solve all our problems. And I feel like lashing out at Bushiroad, or all of the heat that's building up for some of these prices, is very damaging to the game itself, um, because Bushy isn't setting the prices on TCG Player. Once the cards are printed as a shiny piece of cardboard, Tempest is no more special than Rock Auger, but their prices would beg to differ. I think that's really everything I have on this right now. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love discussions and conversations, and I'd love to look forward to reading a lot of these reactions. There's a good chance I'll reply to anything that's said in the comments, and if this video picks up enough traction, I may do a follow-up later. Until then, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.